Hi, welcome to the School Readiness Speech Pathology presentation for 2020. My name is Alyssa Hodge. I'm a speech pathologist in Port Macquarie. I work with children and adults supporting communication and swallowing difficulties. Today I want to talk to you about how you can make sure your child is ready for school and help their transition into the school and education system go as smoothly as possible. I'll have some handouts and some information coming through with the presentation as attachments, so you can have a read of those, and you're always welcome to email me with any questions or concerns. I think the most important thing to talk about for a speech pathologist is communication. So as part of communication, we include speech, the articulation of words, and also the development of speech sound patterns. So you know, a small child around 2 might say doddy, but by 3.5, 4, they're starting to say doggy. So there is a developmental pattern of speech that we understand and can expect to happen. And so by school, we want kids' speech to be 100% intelligible to an unknown listener, not just what you can understand, but we need the teacher to be able to understand 100% of what they say. That's what we're expecting for their age. There are some speech sounds that are still developing. Sometimes the S and the L haven't come, and later on towards year 1, we expect the R sound to be there. And by year 2, we want the th sound to be there. But definitely we want their speech to be intelligible. Also, as a part of communication, we include language. So the sounds in words, the words in sentences, and the sentences in stories. That includes the meanings of words, their vocabulary, the number of words they know, and also how they can use those words in conversations then. So that includes social skills or social communication. Kids need to be able to take turns and wait for their turn in a conversation. They need to be able to read non-verbal communication, things like body language, eye contact. They need to be able to be watching and responding appropriately to the other kids and to the teachers. Fluency is also a part of communication, which includes stuttering. If your child, or you're concerned about your child having a stutter, then you need to refer them straight to a speech pathologist, because the earlier the better for that. We know that. And the other thing is, which is included in communication, is the voice, the quality of the voice or the volume. And if your child has a really breathy or low or unusual quality to their voice, it's always good to get that checked by a speech pathologist as well. How do children develop all these communication skills that they need for school? There's lots of theories of development. Some have their strengths and weaknesses, but basically it comes down to the genetics and the environment. So we know that there's family traits that are passed on. We also know that what you guys do as parents and family and friends really matters to kids. The environment that you provide for them, the stimulation that you provide for them as far as their communication development makes a massive difference. Why are communication skills important? They are vital for everything that happens at school. They're vital across the school day, from walking in and saying hello to their friends and teachers, to following instructions, to sharing their experiences, building friendships during playtime, and then coming home and telling you what's happened and describing what they've learnt that day. Communication skills underpin literacy and numeracy at school. When you think about it, learning numbers is important, but later on in school, if you can't read the question that you're asked in maths, then maths also becomes a real struggle if you haven't got those literacy and communication skills. Communication skills really do underpin literacy development. So the very sound awareness, the very early on, around the 3s and 4s, kids are getting to hear sounds and they can recognise rhymes, and they like to play with sounds. And then as they develop on, they start to hear the sounds at the beginning and ends of words. They start to clap syllables and hear the patterns in words. And they're all really important skills for them to go on to learn that sounds match letters, and that letters are formed into words. So communication skills, speech and language are both really important for literacy development, which is key to their academic success. Communication skills are also closely linked to the behaviour of our kids. So we know if they're not able to communicate or they're not able to follow instructions, they can get confused or frustrated, and that can lead to negative behaviours. And the communication skills are also wrapped up in educational outcomes, social skills, and their self-esteem and their confidence in going out and making friends and learning, those sorts of things. So they are very important. Communication skills are very important to all aspects of primary school and onto the rest of their life into the workplace. So what is expected of a child entering kindergarten? There's a really helpful handout released by Speech Pathology Australia, and I'll put that in the documents forwarded to you. What can be expected at 5 years of age, their communication milestones. As far as listening and understanding skills go, we expect our kids in kindy to be able to follow 3-part instructions. So put your shoes on, get your backpack and line up outside. We want them to understand time-related words and different concepts, more and more difficult concepts like before and after, now and later, those sorts of things. Start thinking about the meaning of words when learning. So starting to think about, oh, there's one word but it has 2 different meanings. It's quite interesting for kids, and you want them to start thinking about the language that we speak and that we use. As an aside, there is benefit in having 2 languages. So your child will not be held back by being bilingual or multilingual in kindergarten. It's encouraged to keep learning any languages. If there's a delay in both languages, in their first language, then there is concern. But we do understand that a second language can be a little bit delayed and take more time to come, and that is okay. But if there's a delay in their first language, then when we are concerned as well. So we want your child to be able to understand instructions without stopping, so on the go, being able to listen and do what they're told to do. We also need them to be able to recognise some letters, sounds and numbers. So they don't need to be able to read and write yet, but they need to have that growing understanding of symbols and numbers and letters, and you can start enjoying that journey with them by pointing out numbers on road signs and letters on street signs and that sort of thing. As far as their expression or their speaking goes, we would expect kindergarten kids to use well-formed sentences that can be understood by most people. So their speech is pretty much adult-like, little sentences, little conversations, not always in the same form as an adult with the same vocabulary, but very much adult sounding by kindergarten. We want them to be able to take turns in increasingly long conversations. So not a monologue, not just them blurting out and talking and then walking away, but them enjoying asking questions and listening to the answering questions themselves, so participating in conversation. We like our kinder kids to be able to tell simple short stories with a beginning, a middle and an end, and that's really important as they go on to write their own stories, that they have that structure in their oral language that they then use in their written language. Starting a story from the beginning, like this happened to me today, and then someone helped me, and then it got fixed in the end, that sort of structure. We want them to start using different word forms, so past tense, present tense, I caught the ball, I will catch the ball, different verb forms, and you'll hear that in their speech. There's obviously still ongoing development in their language, and you can tell often it might sound immature compared to their peers if they're not using some of those word forms. And we've said this, but most speech sounds should be clear by now, except for the S and the L, or the R and the th sound, which won't come till later. So what can you do to continue to help develop your child's communication skills and get them ready for school? Well, firstly, if you're concerned that your child has difficulties with their speech, language, or any part of their communication, it's too late for the wait and see approach now. You need to speak to your child's preschool teacher or other carers. Give them time to give you honest, helpful feedback on your child. Perhaps book a meeting with the preschool to get good, thorough feedback to see whether there's concern that needs following up. Check the online information, which I'll attach, and refer to a speech pathologist as soon as you think you need to, because there are long waiting lists in Port Macquarie and quite a low number of therapists available. There's community health therapists up at Port Community Health, there's private speech pathologists, and there's funding available now for our kids under 7 who have multiple areas of needs through Northcote early intervention funding. So don't wait and see, follow it up, get the process started, and get the support that your child might need. It's quite important. Other things that you can do to support your child's communication development: create a communication positive environment. So limit screen time. Please hear me, there's lots of research coming out now that's suggesting kids' language development is being delayed or disordered by too much screen time. So we're dealing with a new generation that is not learning to participate in conversations, to learn their vocabulary, their sentence forms as well, because of the amount of time they're spending on screens rather than interacting and playing with other children and adults. So think about the amount of time your kids are on screens and also the content of what they're watching or what they're participating in. So a half-hour television show with a storyline like Bluey, with concepts and a beginning and a middle and an end, might actually benefit their speech and language development and their social skills. Whereas watching YouTube video after YouTube video of unboxing potentially doesn't really offer their brain a lot of information to learn and develop from. So think about the time and the content of your kids' screen time. Encourage and set up opportunities for your kids to play with their siblings, their friends. It doesn't have to be outings, it doesn't have to be difficult, it can be free play, role play, dress ups, park play, but encourage them to be interacting and joining in with peers and siblings. You can also play a role in making sure that you're present with them, turn off your phone, interact with them, experience things together, explain things that are happening to them. You might have special interests that expand their vocabulary in a particular area. You are their model for speech and language. So model giving attention, model clear speech, and well-formed sentences and good conversation skills. It's really important. They will learn off you. If you're a yeller, more than likely your child will arrive at school and might be a bit yelly. So, think about what you're modelling to your child and how to communicate and how you want them to learn to do that. Teach them to listen, give them your attention, face them, look at them to show them what appropriate skills are for listening to people. If a child says a word incorrectly, whether it says articulation or whether it's the wrong verb form, like courted instead of catch or something like that, you don't need to correct them, but what you can do is model the word for them. You say, no, I caught the ball. You caught the ball. Instead of saying, no, that's wrong, you just need to model it for them. You don't even need to get them to say it. They just need to hear it a few times over, and eventually they will catch on and learn that new word form or the new articulation for that word. Make sure you're using clear vocabulary and lots of different words. Don't get stuck using simple language because they're young, but keep expanding and talking to them, into more at an adult level now, so they're learning new words and they don't stop developing their vocabulary. One of the most important things you can do for your child is instill a love of reading and of books. Make it a positive thing, not a punishment of having to sit down and read a book. So by kindergarten, We want the children to be able to know how to hold a book and hold it up the right way, to turn the pages and to be aware of text on the page, that the words are what we're reading and have meaning. They don't need to be able to sit with you and read long books from beginning to end, but it's what we call book sharing. Share books with them. You might read a little bit of the story and then go back and talk about what's happening. You might say, talk about the pictures, the actions, play with the sounds of the words. So Dr. Seuss is great. 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish. And you could talk about other colours or other words that rhyme with fish, bish, tish, those kinds of things. Play around with the books and the words in the books to increase their awareness of words and sounds in a positive way. There's lots of great books around now. The Gruffalo, great interesting stories. Spot books are great because they have clear, simple action. You can talk about what's happening. You can ask your kids, oh, what's he doing? He's watering the garden. Why would he need to be watering the garden? Maybe it hasn't rained for a while and so it's getting dry. Those little conversations, asking questions, getting them to give you information about the action and thinking a little bit further about what's happening is a great way to stimulate language development and vocabulary. There's books that might cover specific concepts or issues. There's great books now on emotions, social skills, different types of books. So you can go to town, enjoy reading, make it a regular thing in your household. You could have a big book that you read a chapter a night of, or smaller books, change it around, don't make it a chore for your kids. That will make a huge difference to their schooling. And audiobooks as well is another way to expose your kids to more vocabulary and reading in a different way, a positive way. So you can have an audiobook going on in the car. You might listen to a chapter and then turn it off. So that's good. Lots of games. You don't have to go out and buy new things. Just use what you've got in the cupboard to stimulate language and speech. You've probably got dress-ups or little role-play games. Kids, encourage them to have imaginative play or free play, having cups of tea, dress-ups, outside play, describing what they're doing, taking turns, mimicking adult life is really important for their speech and language development. There's turn-taking games like a snap game, whatever your family might be into, but it's relying on them to learn to take turns, to wait their turn, and also learn those skills of winning and losing, which is really important at school. Games like memory, where they're learning new words and concepts, but also utilising their working memory and short-term memory, and their attention span is being pushed a little bit. They're really good games to play. Games like I Spy that play with the sound of words or letters. They don't have to name a letter. They can be looking for the sound of words. You could play a board game. You could play I Spy in the car. So I spy with my little eye something beginning with road, or I spy with my little eye something that is black, the road. So they don't have to know how to learn how to read and write to do that. You can play with the sounds and make words and sounds a positive interaction for your kids. Guess Who is a great game for asking questions, describing words, letting the kids look and talk about what people look like, how you distinguish people by appearance, and describing words, answering questions and asking questions. Really great skills in those games. And any sort of guessing game or word games are great fun to play with kids. This is a what am I, so they have to guess and describe and answer questions. So they're all really good things to do with your kids, getting them ready for kindergarten. The last thing is to keep everything positive. So we try and give 5 praises to any 1 negative correction. So tell your kids what they're getting right. Tell them what they're good at, and try and hold back on the negative corrections. Just model the right thing to do, model the right word, model how to have conversations and how to be a good listener yourself, rather than stopping your kids and telling them that they're doing the wrong thing. show them how to do the right thing and encourage them and praise them specifically when they've got it right. Great listening. I could see your eyes looking at me when you were listening. That was great listening. Or, oh my goodness, you listened and you did what I asked you to do the first time. That was great. You're very clever to follow that instruction. Those sort of really specific praises is what will help your kids learn to do more and more of that right thing, rather than feel like they're not getting anything right. So that's all I've got to say for now. I'm happy to answer questions by email, and the handouts and presentations will be coming out to you as well.